words because words matter, and choosing the right word when you're having conversation or the right words can make or break a conversation. Starts with being interested because it's in the moments that they feel seen and they feel heard. And human connection for me is what simplifies leadership.
I just said the right word anyway, but listen, observe, act.
Act. I am so much more patient. I am so much more compassionate and empathetic when I understand this person's learning. It might take them longer to do something. They might have to go and check with a boss in order to complete a transaction, that type of thing.
All right, well, welcome everyone to System 1357. And today we have Rhonda Delaney. And Rhonda Delaney's come along to talk to us about, a few interesting subjects around leadership. What I find really interesting about Rhonda is, Rhonda's got a podcast and she's been doing a lot of wonderful things, but she's done 15 years in the chocolate industry before this. So, and Easter's just gone and we've all been eating lots and lots of chocolate. So I'm sure you're an expert on chocolate as much as you are around the leadership. And I guess you use the way you grow people and your leadership style around your food and it's pretty interesting the way you do it. I like the way you put your spin on it, Rhonda. So I'm pretty interested the way you're going to talk about how you cultivate leadership today and that culture. So give us a bit more background around the chocolate and what led you into where you are today.
The short version, I was 15 years with a chocolate company, and I was 5 years in accounting. I took over the sales for 7 years. And then for 3 years, I ran operations, 5 different departments. And the company was bought by a private equity firm. And changes started happening, and I was not happy with what I was seeing. I didn't like the direction that they were taking. I didn't like how they were interacting with people. So I got fairly vocal. And one day I walked in and my position had been eliminated. And so I was gone. And the people gardener, my one-on-one coaching, my Leaders Grow First course, all of those are a result of exiting very abruptly from a corporate job. And it's been great. It's been tough. It's been invigorating. It's been all sorts of things, but it has been a really good learning experience. I'm 62 this year, and I tell you, my brain hurts, but my heart is happy. So it's all good.
That's excellent. Hey, what a story. And today's subject matter is around being interested, creating moments of humanity to cultivate a team of raving fans who are engaged, energized, and effective. So tell us more about that.
Well, when you think about being a raving fan, you yourself are a raving fan. How would you describe that? A lot of people, they would say, okay, well, I cheer loud. I'm a cheerleader, right? I'm going to follow you. Like, you've got your teams, you've got your musicians, right? You got the roadies, you got people, traveling all over the place because they just have to be where this person is. You believe that person has your back. They want to stick close. They want to be around you. To me, I want to follow that kind of leader. I want to be that leader that people want to be around, that people know that I'm going to look after them. I'm going to help them. I'm going to be there. I'm going to listen. I'm going to encourage. So to me, that's why I want to help leaders develop teams of raving fans. And the be interested is where it starts. And my focus is on new leaders, emerging leaders, people that have been put in positions by choice or by force. They've all of a sudden just been told, okay, you're leading this team, have at it. Or the new business owner who might have been a solopreneur, and all of a sudden they have 2, 3, 5 employees. And it's like, well, what do I do with these people? I've never led anybody before. I don't know what I'm doing. So my focus is really simplifying down to the humanity of leading people, to just get rid of all that stress and just be happy in working with human beings.
Well, that's excellent. So, let's get started. You've got a few screenshots, PowerPoints, visual aids, let's call it whatever you like.
Okay.
I love the people gardener, by the way.
One thing that I should mention is, I don't know if this happens in Australia, but in Canada and the United States, often when you walk into a bank and there's a new teller, it's they put a sign there, teller in training. Or at the grocery store or the food mart, it's cashier in training. And there is a way for you to recognize that this person is new. They are emerging into the position that they're in. And I really wish there was some way to identify new leaders, because I know myself, I am so much more patient. I am so much more compassionate and empathetic when I understand this person's learning. It might take them longer to do something. They might have to go and check with a boss in order to complete a transaction, that type of thing. And so my whole focus is on empowering and encouraging new leaders. And I know that by doing that, they are going to create these teams of raving fans. And it all starts with human connection. The raving fans, they feel connected to the person who they're a fan of. They feel appreciated. They feel seen. They feel heard. And human connection, for me, is what simplifies leadership. Leadership doesn't have to be complicated. Oftentimes, it's not easy because we human beings are complex, but it doesn't have to be hard. And it can be simple. And the way to do that is by interacting with the humans that you lead. And so the definition of the word connection, there's 4 words that I found that fleshes out what connection really is. So the first one is link. And immediately when I hear this word, I think about linking arms with somebody and walking together. I also was thinking about the hyperlink that we use to capture a URL and attach it, intentionally attach it to a word or a phrase. So link is great. Joined, that's a togetherness, to be adhered to, right beside, close. Rapport, it's being aligned with and similar values, having an ease of conversation because there is openness and acceptance and inclusivity. So we can feel comfortable having a conversation. And then the other one is the circuit. And it's the conducive energy or the conductive energy between two people. And it's the full circle. So connected, the human connection, there's a lot to it. It starts with being interested. And when I was preparing this slide, I had originally used the word precursor, that being interested is the precursor to caring. But prerequisite was a better selection because it requires the prior condition of being interested in order to get to caring. So you must be interested. It's not possible to care about something if you have no interest in it. So I'm a gardener, and most of my leadership philosophies are from the garden, what I've learned from nature, from growing and tending plants. And every year I get this seed catalog. I get lots of seed catalogs, and I just wipe off the dining room table, and I plunk down, and I spend hours over multiple weeks going through the catalogs, trying to determine, okay, so what am I going to add to the garden this year? What should I grow? What should I buy? Where am I going to plant it? And I'm in my happy place, just figuring all that out. Well, if I didn't care about the end result of my garden, if I didn't care about the feeling that I was creating out there, if I didn't care how other people felt, that they would feel welcomed as they came into the garden, I wouldn't be interested in looking at any of these catalogs. So we have to be interested, and then we get to the place of caring. And I'm big into words, as you probably already figured out. I like words because words matter, and choosing the right word when you're having conversation, or the right words, can make or break a conversation, especially when you're working in the feedback end of things. So the components of interest: curiosity. And again, interest is a choice. You have to choose to be interested. So it's the desire to know, desire to understand. It's inquisitiveness. And no, that doesn't mean you're getting all up in somebody's business. It just simply means that you are open to finding out more about this human being that you're leading, and what it is that they need from you, what it is they like, what it is they dislike, where it is they want to go. And then you've got attention, careful observation, intentional listening, and focus and concentration. So you are there, you are present when you're interacting, and you are paying attention to all of the signals, whether they be verbal or nonverbal, that your team member is expressing to you. And that can happen at any time during your day. The other thing is concern. Part of interest is being concerned about this person and wanting to relate to them, and wanting to look after them, to tend to them. No, you're not trying to create this dependent human being on you, but you do want to show them that you're interested in making sure that they succeed, and that you are expressing empathy and compassion. Be involved. You have to connect closely with them, actively participate, help them in their work, participate in the figuring out part of things, participate in removing roadblocks for them because of systems, processes. It could even be something outside of work. They're struggling with daycare. They need more time because they have a physical condition that they require. You know, it could be physical therapy, it could be doctors, but be involved and making sure that they get what it is that they need, and be committed to them, and just be there all the time for them. If they come, be open and say, yes, I'm happy to chat. So these are all the components of interest, of being interested. Many people say to me, wow, that's so much stuff to have to try and remember to do on a daily, hourly basis. Well, the reality is, it does seem like a huge task, but once you start internalizing what it is to be interested, you will find that it just becomes a part of you. Those questions, those probing questions, just automatically come out. Your observation level increases amazing. You walk in and you're getting the sense, you're feeling the vibe. You can tell if something's off or if everything's going fine, but you're not going to get there unless you build your database in your mind so that you can determine whether something's off or not. So right now, you've figured out how to be interested. Now is the time where you create moments. And it's in the moments that you solidify yourself as a leader that they want to follow, because it's in the moments that they feel seen and they feel heard. And yes, that is plural. That's moments with an S, because it's a continual effort on your part to engage and interact in a way that they understand that you care about them as human beings. You want them to succeed. You are there to help them do the job that you've asked them to do. And, earlier I mentioned the seed catalog. Well, the end of that story is after the number of weeks, I figured out what it was that I wanted. And during this time, I'm yabbering away. We've got 3 daughters, and Trev, bless his heart, he listens and he knows I go through this every year, and they hear me. I decided that I was going to buy a bunch of Stella d'Oro daylilies. Now, I would guess you may have them in Australia. I'm not sure. But anyway, they're a gorgeous flower that has these beautiful green fronds that come out. And then it's this bright yellow happy face on this tall stem. And our west-facing bank, that is the entry to our yard, I wanted that to be full of Stella d'Oros, because it's happy, right? It's like I'd be happy driving up to our yard and seeing all these yellow smiling faces. So the hunt's on February, March, April, and I'm still looking for these. And I'm grumbling to the girls and I'm grumbling to Trev because I can't find what I'm looking for. And I'm set on these, right? So May here in the US is Mother's Day. And it was the Mother's Day weekend, and I was out in the yard on the Saturday, and I was doing my thing in the garden full of dirt, and the girls arrived and the grandkids, and I'm going, well, this is weird. We're supposed to be getting together tomorrow. And anyway, I get up, I'm thrilled, hugs all around. And one of the girls says to me, he says, hey, Mom, look what we found. They had found 20 Stella d'Oro daylilies on a cart, and they wheeled it out for me. Well, in that moment, I knew that they loved me. I knew that they heard me, and I knew that they cared about me. It's those kinds of moments that you need to create for your team. I remember where I was standing on the driveway when that happened. Your team needs to remember where they were standing. They need to remember the conversation, and you need to create those moments. And you can create those moments if you're interested, if you care about them, if you make sure that you are expressing things in a way that they understand that they're seen and that they're heard and that they're valued. So how do you create these moments? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to listen. You have to hear the words they say, and you need to hear the words that they don't say. And if you open your ears for words as well as ambient noise, you are going to hear the harmony or the dissonance, because both are palpable if you just get quiet yourself and listen to it. We don't always have to be actively engaged in a conversation to understand what is going on. It's great to just observe and listen. Clarify speak back what you heard to ensure that what you heard is actually what they meant. So listen up. Again, observe. It's a little harder to do these days when people aren't physically in rooms, but you can do it. You can still do it on Zoom or on a video call. You can watch the facial expressions, the body language of people as they're interacting with you or they're interacting with each other. You can get a little bit of a sense there. Another way of observing is observe their work and how invested are they in the accuracy, in the details, in the deadlines. You'll start to find a pattern, and it will help you understand a little bit better so that when you do have a conversation, you have a point of reference. And then we have ACT. And my tagline has been right from the get-go that leadership is a verb. And it absolutely is. And it is to be and to do. And I think you guys all know Mark LeBusque. He was on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, I think it is now. And, you know, he's all about be human. So take steps, lend a hand, actively participate in every person on your team, in their life, in them supporting them doing their job, supporting them living their life outside of the job, but actively work at that. So this, what I've just described, is how you create a people garden. And your garden is to cultivate each unique, amazing human being on your team. And why am I so hung up on people creating these amazing people gardens? It's because everyone deserves a leader that embraces their uniqueness and is committed to cultivating their potential. I'm happy to chat and answer any questions that you might have. This is what I have. This is what I live for, and this is what I love to teach because it's not complicated, and it for new leaders, for emerging leaders, whether they're business owners or employees, it's really, really easy to let yourself get into the weeds because you're feeling stress or because you're feeling overwhelmed when it doesn't have to be. So I'm going to stop the share here and we can chat.
That was excellent. Hey, listen, I just said the right word anyway, but listen, observe, act.
Act.
It doesn't have to be complicated, right? Listen, observe, act. That was just so good. Well said. You know, I think a lot of people, you said leadership is a verb. I think it's also a buzzword. You know, it's actually not complicated. It's a buzzword. It's not complicated. You know, listen, observe, act. I mean, it's you're in a position of management or leadership or whatever it is. It's not that complicated because I hear so much about it. It's almost confusing. When you can simplify it the way you just did, Rhonda, with listen, observe, act. You know, you've also got the other things you had there, but I'm just saying those three alone just summed it up nicely.
Well, it's something that I taught my team, what I encourage my team to understand is that they are each president and CEO of their desk. And when you come at it from that perspective and you understand that you're creating the culture that is at your desk, you're creating the feeling that people are going to have when they come to interact with you, and then you're going to create another feeling when you move your work on to someone else. That's called leadership. You don't have to be called the leader or called the manager or hold a title of any kind. If you lead yourself in a way that shows and demonstrates to everybody that you work with that you care about the product that you're producing at your desk, and you care about the culture that they are experiencing when they come to your desk, when it comes time for a promotion or to move on or to maybe lead a few people, you're going to be very, very well placed in order to do that.
Yeah, awesome. I like it. I thought that was so well said. So that was gold. Well done.
Rhonda, I love the simplicity of it. It's I mean, like Scotty, I've never seen myself as a leader, and in a sense, you can sort of say, well, everybody's a leader, but I do find the leadership thing, the talk about leadership, not always off-putting, but I find it a bit just think, well, look, that's not for me. But this was completely relevant, completely relatable, very very human perspective, and just that whole idea of reading people's signals and yeah, it's and the metaphors as well. I love the gardening metaphors, even though I'm not a gardener. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about what I learned from gardening is there isn't a gardener around that buys a seed packet that expects something different to actually sprout. So if you've got a seed packet that's a sunflower, as a gardener, you have zero expectation that you're going to get a rose. Zero, right? And yet we as human beings, we expect people to be other than they are innately. Like, Scotty, does it make any sense that I would expect you to be Anthony or vice versa?
Yeah, it's a great.
It doesn't. And yet for so many years, oh, that's not professional, or that's not this, or no, you can't go there, instead of embracing this uniqueness that is the human, right? And the other thing that a gardener knows is that if the plant is not thriving, it's completely the gardener's fault. Because the gardener is not giving the plant what it needs to thrive. It didn't put it in the right place. Too much sun, not enough sun. Too much water, not enough water. Not the right nutrients, right? I mean, there's so many reasons that a plant doesn't thrive. And yet for so long, leadership just threw people out because they weren't performing the way that they wanted them to, instead of putting them in a place where their strengths and who they innately are could come to the surface and they would perform amazingly well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. One of my greatest challenges in coming up with my Leaders Grow First program and just my whole message was that voice in my head that says, it's too simple. There's not enough meat. It's too simple. And yet I keep going back to it, and it works. It helps people to just really get rid of academia, get rid of psychology, get rid of all of that stuff. Not saying that there isn't a place for it, but when you are first working at developing your skill as a leader, if we could create a place that this is what they were given, in not many years' time, we would have cultures in companies that are phenomenal. Because the human is so important, and yet it is downplayed so much, and how unique each person is.
Wow. So just in wrapping up for the 30 minutes, what's your one key takeaway that you'd like to share just as we wrap up, and then we'll go to a bit of Q&A. What's your one key thing that you'd like to share, Rhonda?
To remember, as a leader, it's not about you. It's all about them, and it's always been about them.
Well said. Hey, listen, I've got a question. So I'm a big believer in, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are around this. I'm a big believer in leadership. Like, a lot of people are solopreneurs and they don't think leadership matters to them. But I'm a big believer in there's self-leadership, but taking that aside, if you're a solopreneur, you don't have a team, which means you miss one of the layers. But there's also leadership around your suppliers and leadership around your customers. And to me, it's the same leadership. It's the same thing. You use that analogy of a desk. You're the CEO of your desk, but you're also leading, like I said, the people around you. Even if you don't have a team of 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people, you've got suppliers you've got to manage, you've got to lead, you've got to, have on your side and on your team. You've got clients that you have to do exactly the same thing with. What's your take on, the peripheral, not just internal team within a business or a job title, if you want to call it? I'm talking about on the outside. What's your take on that?
Oh, totally agree with where you're coming from. You have to understand that as a solopreneur, every single hat is yours. And that includes the chief culture officer, the chief complaint desk, the chief, customer service. You have to be all of those things with people. And so you are responsible for the interaction, and you have to lead that interaction in a way that aligns with your values, right? And it's if your goal is to serve your clients and your customers, then you have to serve your suppliers because you need them in order to serve your customer. Because if you don't have a good relationship with them and something goes sideways, then you're going to cause problems in your relationship with your customers.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Any questions?
So I take your point about the solopreneur and that you're kind of leading in other ways. What's one kind of takeaway? I'm probably going to steal Scotty's thunder here, but what's one kind of takeaway that you would recommend for somebody who is working from home, doing the Zoom thing, probably has a lot of interaction with other people doing things like this? So even though a lot of people say how lonely it is, but it's not for me. Well, what one piece of advice would you give in terms of taking more ownership?
What I've found for myself is choosing to be present and to intentionally be focused online. And for you to be able to sit down and describe every one of your customers, to know their need, to know their personality, to know what's happened in their life and their family and all of those kinds of things. That's the same as being interested for a team that's within your employ. You have to be just as interested in order to care about your customer as a solopreneur, as a leader in a business has to do in order to get to that place of caring about each person. So being intentional about your interaction every time you interact, and making note. In the beginning, when I would have conversations with team members and they something had happened in their life. It could have been they got a speeding ticket, or, their dog was ill, or their mom broke her hip, or whatever it was. They brought this up to me after, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it. And then I started realizing, and I was more intentional with it, is when you get that information, and yes, you offer your compassion and your empathy in that situation, come back to it in a week or 2 weeks and check in.
Yeah. That's really good.
They said that that was a moment for them. They knew that you'd heard them. They knew that you cared about them. So as a solopreneur, that's absolutely something that you can with your customers.
No, that's really good. And in fact, I was supposed to meet somebody late last week, but she wanted to put it off because she had a milestone birthday. She told me. So she didn't tell me what the birthday was, and I was delicate enough not to ask her.
Right.
I was congratulating her on her 21st again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then when it comes around,
when I saw her again, I said, she doesn't look a day older.
So how was the party?
Yeah.
kind of thing, because it makes such an impact on them that hey, he offered it up. And to begin with, I used to write things down. Something like I had a conversation, I would write, but it got that I was able to just kind of keep it in.
I think you develop a habit for those sort of things, and those almost incidental details that people will drop, not even necessarily some tragedy or something very exciting in their life, but something that has happened, and you bring it up without embarrassing them.
Another helpful thing is I've kind of been a networker for years, not in people, but in things. So you're having conversations with people and they say, I was out shopping. I was looking for this, whatever this was, just like with the flowers, right? That's something that you can do with your clients. If you're talking in a conversation and they're bringing up something that they have been looking for or they wondered about, and you see it, take a picture, text it to them. No more than that. Just say, hey, wasn't this what you were talking about? And if they want to come back at you, then great. Send an email, or if you're on the phone with them, the next day or the same day, do that. It's that seeing and hearing piece of it is a huge part of the interest that shows to them that you care, that creates the moment that those people are going to remember you. And they may not even need your service right now, but when they do, I'm going to Anthony.
Sure.
I wouldn't think of going to anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. That's great.
That's awesome. Hey, listen, so the whole plant-based leadership's awesome. Did you come about that after the chocolate or during the chocolate phase?
During.
Yep. So you were doing the leadership, all this leadership coaching and training during the chocolate phase, because you were
I used what I was learning to lead my teams of people inside the company, the chocolate company.
Yep.
And when I was gone from there, I created my course, I created my one-on-one coaching and started the podcast. And again, the podcast is for emerging leaders. Excuse me. So I tell people, I said, you know what? I feel like I've been a leader since kindergarten. But back in those days when I was younger, I thought being a leader was just telling people what to do. And so I got called bossy and aggressive and, all that kind of stuff. And I have learned as I've matured over the years that, yes, there is a time when you are required to tell people what to do, but that's a very small part of leadership.
Well, we'll start to wrap up, but
Yeah.
I love the words you use here on your LinkedIn profile around the chocolate. What was it called? Totally chocolate. And you say systems, efficiencies, and straightforward thinking is where I thrive.
Yeah.
And what you demonstrated today was some of that real logical, easy to understand systems, if you like. I love the word systems around leadership. And leadership doesn't have to be complicated. You are 100% correct. And it's often, we talk about people who get promoted into leadership and then they fail, but we don't know whether they're going to succeed or fail until they get there. So, and a lot of it comes down to that training, as you say, that knowledge, that training, giving people an opportunity to grow where they want to grow instead of trying to be a puppet in a direction that the last person was. They get promoted because someone leaves and now they're in leadership, or they got a stronger leadership role, and all of a sudden they struggle because they're trying to be like the other person when they really need to be cultured and grown. Because you can't get a rose out of a sunflower seed, right?
Exactly. Well, and one of the scenarios that is really common is somebody excels at a task in a department, right? This is really common in sales. They're the number one salespeople. They've been the salesperson. They've been it for months and months and months. And then the boss person decides, awesome, you're going to be our new sales manager. This is awesome. You're going to teach everybody else to do exactly what you did. And we're just going to make a gazillion bucks, right? Well, this person has no clue about how to lead people. Before long, there's so much infighting and so much unhappiness. And this person who was at the top of the heap and excelled and felt really good about themselves and their life now hates their job.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what they're doing. And they're not getting supported. And the leadership or the ownership of the company figured just because you can sell means you should be able to teach and help other people do the same thing.
Which is a fair enough assumption, but you're 100% correct. In sales, it's so common. The number one salesperson gets promoted to be the manager. But, if you didn't promote the number one salesperson, they'd have been jaded anyway. So at the end of the day, you've sort of got to give the number one salesperson the go, because if that's what they want to do, that's what they can have a crack at. But, it's not often the best player on the field is also the best coach.
No, more often than not.
Yeah.
Right?
So more often than not, it was. Yeah.
Their sole focus has been on acquiring the skill to be the best. It's not in interacting with people. Yeah. Often it's to the exclusion of interacting with people.
Well, look, on that note, we'll wrap up. That's been a great session. I love the simplicity of it, the KISS method. Keep it simple, Scotty.
Yeah.
I like the KISS method. Everything's got to be nice and simple, so people can remember and they can understand and they can implement. Yeah. So that was excellent, Rhonda. Look, for the replay we will put up live on System 1357. Right. That's going to be awesome. There is a whole heap of other replays people can go on and look at and watch the other workshops. There's some on sales, there's some on leadership, there's video production, there's YouTube channels, there's all sorts of replays people can go and watch. And keep an eye on what's coming up next with System 1357 live, because we've got some amazing people coming up, and we continue getting more and more and more guests on to share their knowledge for 30 odd minutes, just like you have today.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we've only launched in January this year, and it's kicking into gear, which is excellent. So I can't wait to see how much we unfold this year and share as much talent as we can for all those people that want to hear what you're up to. So Rhonda, I love the way you explained that and your gardening background. I expected more chocolate in there, but we can go with the gardening. That was the whole purpose.
I'm a pro at eating chocolate.
I only eat it once a year at Easter, and I tell you, I smashed out a big bunny last night, and I would never do that. If it was just a bar of chocolate, I wouldn't have eaten it, but a big bunny, I smashed it out last night. I think, man, don't eat this chocolate any other time of year, but why not? It's Easter. All right. Well, thanks for being an awesome co-host, Rhonda.
Yep.
And in the show notes, we'll put links back to how people can find out more about you and how they can learn more and go follow your LinkedIn or go follow any other podcast that you do, because you're a podcast host as well. So all those links will be in the show notes as well. So
yeah. Perfect. Wonderful. Appreciate the time. It's been fun.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Been awesome, Rhonda. Well done.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.